Hi friends, welcome to episode 3 of the KukieKnits Podcast. My name is Ira and I'm coming to you from Sydney, Australia. I'm originally from Kathmandu, Nepal, and I'm mostly a knitter, an occasional cross-stitcher, and hopefully a bit more of a sewist. It'll be explained later. If it's your first time here, welcome. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for choosing to spend a little bit more of your time with me. Hopefully you have a little bit of knitting to do along as you watch my projects. Welcome. If you're looking at this and wondering, wow, she's sitting really close to me, it's because I am. There's been absolutely horrendous weather in Sydney over the past week and a half with incessant raining, flash floods. Some areas are having their 4th flood since March 2021. And it's been, I would say, collectively since 2020, between the bushfires and the floods and COVID, a spectacularly rough time for our country. So this was the only place in the house and the only distance that I could sit at that you could sort of see slightly accurate colors. It's probably going to be a little bit gray or blue anyways. But if I didn't film today, I wouldn't get time to film over the next couple of weeks, and then my next podcast would be 8 hours long, and nobody wants to watch that. So let's get started into the knitting. My first finished project is the Cumulus Tee by Petite Knit. This has featured in both of my previous podcasts as a work in progress, and I'm happy to say it's finished. Whee! Sorry, it's been folded up for a while. So as you can see, the I-cord bind off is sitting flat after blocking. This is knit in the 4-ply undyed sock base with multicolored Deneagle nets from Fiber Art Shed. As suspected, it's not as long as I wanted. However, I think it's long enough for me to not do anything about it. I'll insert a picture of me in it. Yeah, so the original project is knit in tin lin, like a summer cotton linen mixed type yarn, but I chose to knit it in wool as I really like to wear it probably in the, well, at the moment I'm wearing it under a jacket because I have quite a lot of jackets I like, but it's too hot to wear a full like thick sweater under a jacket for me. So this is perfect. I think it would also be great for transitional seasons. I really like the yarn. It's so fun. Just gives it a little bit more interest instead of just a plain white tee. Though the color is a bit more off-white than I expected. I personally think it's really rude of sheep to be off-white because it's an undyed base. In my mind, I was thinking it would be a crisp white, which makes no sense. You'll see that that's an occurring theme later on today. I'm really happy with it. I think I would make a couple in summer yarns, winter yarns. It's really easy wearing, really fun to knit. A lot of podcasters I watch have knit multiple of this. Looking at you, Francesca, from the Italian Knitter podcast, and I totally get it. Like, it's an easy piece to wear. It's really good mindless knitting. But it doesn't go by so fast because it's a 4-ply sweater, so I like it. I think there will be a few more coming up on my channel. My next finished object is what I'm wearing. This is a test knit. It's called the Abydos top by Lily Kate France. The estimate date of release should be sometime in July. I think she's still kind of trying to figure out when to release it, as a lot of testers finished a lot earlier than was needed. So I think she might move it up. I'm not quite sure. I would highly recommend following Lily Kate France on Instagram if you really like the look of the tee and want to keep updated with when the pattern's available. So I'll stand up and show you. Whee! Okay. So it's a really cute summer pattern. I don't usually test knit. I've only done one before, and I didn't enjoy the experience, and to be honest, I can't tell you why I didn't enjoy the experience. It wasn't the deadline. I finished on time. I think I'm quite a fast knitter, especially if I focus just on the project. It wasn't the pattern. I mean, the t-shirt wasn't to my liking, but I knew that when I signed up for the test knit. I was like, I don't know if I can wear this, and I couldn't, and I gave it to one of my friends and she loves it, so it's fine. It wasn't the designer. It wasn't, maybe it was just me. Maybe I was the problem. Like, I wasn't quite in the headspace to do a test knit. And this was last year, I think. But when I first saw this design on Lily's Instagram, it's so beautiful, especially with the sheer mohair. She did hers in white. Whew! Of course, I signed up. Also, a lot of people that I love to watch the knitting of and follow regularly test knit for Lily, and I've heard from many people that her patterns are basically done. There's no back and forth, there's no changing. It's quite a smooth test knit, so I signed up for it. Let me tell you what yarns I'm knitting it in. So the mohair, this is also a new acquisition, is the Kremke Soul Wool Silky Kid. Please focus. There we go. And it's in the colorway Dusty Pink. And the body and the other yarn is a cotton, 100% cotton from Fibra Natura. The yarn's called Cottonwood, and I think the color is 41151. I recently looked this yarn up on Sunspun Yarns in Melbourne. They still had it in stock. However, on Ravelry it says it's discontinued, so maybe that might be the last of the stock. I know you guys are joining in my knitting journey a couple of years in, where I would say an intermediate knitter, and you don't get to see the day-to-day parts, but let me tell you, I still make really stupid mistakes. So now that it's been a couple of weeks and I feel ready to talk about it, I'll tell you. So I signed up for this knit because I already had this yarn. I had picked it up in a D-stash with no project in mind, the cottonwood, and I had a little bit of pink mohair left over from another project that I thought would be enough. And then we got the details, and it was like really on the edge of whether it was enough or not. And the previous time that I had used that light pink mohair, I had held it with a darker pink yarn to get like a marl type effect, and in my stupid mind I was like, well, the core, like the silk of that yarn is white, which it wasn't. It was light pink, but because it was contrasted against a darker pink, I just thought that silk didn't take on color. Which is so stupid because I've knit with a black mohair before and I know it was black. Anyways, so I contacted a few of my friends asking them if they had any leftover mohair. I thought, well, I can, just do a couple in a lighter color or darker color or whatever. And I got some white mohair off of one of my friends. And I got it off her on the day that we went to a yarn store together. And I remember looking at the mohair there and thinking, should I get one? I was like, nah, I have the little bit of white. And when I say a little bit, I mean it was like a couple of grams of pure white. So I didn't buy any at the yarn store. God, I can't believe I'm publicly telling how stupid my brain works. Shit. I didn't buy any at the yarn store. And then I came home and I look at the white and the pink mohair, and lo and behold, they're completely different colors, of course. And I couldn't quite make it work. I couldn't do like one. I thought maybe I could alternate, but the yardages weren't quite right, and I was so annoyed with myself. So I decided finally, after I gave up on trying to make it work, because there's no way with the yardages and the proportion I could make it work, I decided to order mohair. There's this yarn online retailer called Red Heart Designs. They're based out of Victoria, and my friend has ordered a bit of yarn from there, and they have some other yarn that I really wanted to try. So I was looking at their website and I was like, all right, if I'm ordering mohair, I guess I'll order another sweater quantity of yarn to make up for the shipping. You know, that's how I think all knitters' brains work. So I gave up and I ordered it. And then the next day I look at my order and I forgot to buy the mohair. I almost cried. I was like, what am I doing? Luckily, Nina from Red Heart Designs was very lovely when I frantically sent her a panic email, and she let me buy the mohair and add it to the order. Okay, so that's the drama before I even started knitting. Once I started knitting, this is a really fun knit. My only issue was with the other yarn as well, the Fibra Natura. It had at least one, if not two knots in each of the balls that I used. And I'm not confident at all in my ability to weave cotton ends in properly. So I was trying to sort of keep them under my arm or in the back, not right in the front of the body in case they're still visible after blocking. However, I think it blocked out quite well. Like you can barely see the weaving in. One time I was already frustrated about it, and when I was adding my last ball of yarn in, I had just joined in the new ball, and literally I think 2 or 3 rounds afterwards there was a knot. I almost cried on a train in front of my friend. I was like, why? And I just put the knitting away. I had to take a break. Saying that, this is the nicest feeling cotton I've ever worked in. Like, it's beautiful. I need to look up and see if they're going out of stock because of the discontinued thing, because I might actually buy a couple more colors. I have a couple more cotton projects I have in mind, but I don't actually have any yarn for it, and I really like the yarn. I was just stressed that after blocking, if I picked it up, it would fall apart into 11 pieces, because I just rely so much on the rustic yarn's capabilities to hold the weaving in. Like, I'm like, oh, it just, they stick together, they hold. I don't need to do that good a job. I can't do that with cotton. Long story short, I like the shirt. I like the yarn despite the knots. And the mohair is beautiful, and I can totally envision myself making this in a couple of colors. I think it's so beautiful and so unique. Like in a black, I think it would be such a beautiful show, like evening t-shirt. And I think I have some black mohair left over as well, but I need to check the yardage. That's my final finished project. Thanks for listening to my rant. Okay. And now moving on to, I have a half-finished object, which has never happened before. As I was saying, it's been quite cold and windy in Sydney, and anytime I sit outdoors, especially during the knitters meets, everybody pulls out their fingerless mitts. And I was so jealous because my hands were freezing. So of course I had to cast one on immediately, ignoring all the other projects I have. So I have a half-finished, unblocked fingerless mitten. This is the Phalanges by Jody Gordon Lucas, and it's a free knitting pattern from Knitty in 2012. So the body is just written, it's like a mosaic knitting pattern. I've used my leftovers. So the light blue is 3 cat yarns, duck egg in soft sock. And it's leftovers from the Jessie made Secret Summer crop design. That was my finished project in my first podcast. And then the purple is some random Danish yarn that I can't even find online. It's called Sonderborg Garn Trunte. Oh Lord. In a purple. I had to actually input this into Ravelry's database because I couldn't find it, and I don't trust whatever I did, but it's a 4-ply superwash merino. The really interesting thing about this pattern is it has a different way of doing the fingers. So I didn't want just the open ribbing, because I think while I'm moving around and it flops back and forth, it would be really annoying. I wanted fingers. And of course, having never knit gloves before and everybody talking about how annoying it is to knit fingers, I decided to find a shortcut for the first time ever that I was doing it. And this is what I landed on. So basically, let me put it on. So it has little finger divisions, but you don't actually continue knitting up. So the construction of it, and you can use this pattern, this technique in any mitt pattern. There's also a free video link to the technique used here. It's on the Ravelry page of the project, and I will link that down below. So you knit up, and you know, knitting in circles, increasing for the thumb gusset. And then as you go up here, what you do is you actually knit the thumb first, and then you come back into the body and you knit across. And then right on the final line, you knit a stitch from the back here to the stitch in the front. And then like vice versa, you just do that here, 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 and then the other way. And basically what it does is it like closes it, so it makes these finger holes. Can you see anything I'm talking about? I mean, like my hands are like in the camera and you can't see anything. Yeah. And then you bind off in a zigzag pattern like this. So basically you only cut the yarn once you finish the thumb, you rejoin it to the body, and all of this finger separation is done without cutting the yarn. I love it. It's exactly what I wanted. So I still get, you know, full usage of my fingers. And because it's 4-ply, I don't find the yarn in between my fingers too annoying, actually. And the whole point is I want to knit with it on, so my fingers won't be, you know, stuck together. I'll be knitting like this. I'm super pleased with it. I cast on the second one immediately, and then I've been procrastinating. Look, I think that's just the way that half-finished objects go. You just procrastinate on the other one, whether it's a sock or a mitten. Yeah, and this is super fun. And my partner wants a pair of mitts as well, but for his ones, I think I would do the proper half finger, so I will eventually learn that technique, but I'm super pleased with this. So the Phalanges by Jody Gordon Lucas. Excuse me while I take my mitts off. Okay, so that's my finished projects, and my half-finished object, a hull. I just wanted to say that. And moving on to my works in progress. They're the same ones from the last podcast, because instead of working on them, I decided to finish this and do a mitt in tiny needles with mosaic color work. What can you expect? My first work in progress is the Aurealis by Jennifer Steingass. Whee! Someday I'll pick this up without the yarn just running away from me. That's how the yoke's looking. And I've finished the body, and now I'm on the sleeve. I'm using Western Yorkshire Spinners 100% Jacob's fleece in the color brown black, and the yoke is done in the Bendigo Woolen Mills Bloom yarn, which is an 8-ply color changing yarn in the colorway red ochre. I love this so much. Now that I've tried it on, I feel like the yarn's actually, it is rustic to the hand feel, but I don't find it irritating at all. So in a way, I wish I had done, like, originally I wanted to do a high turtleneck because I was going for the 70s vibe. You can totally see with the dark brown and the orange tones, like how it looks 70s. So I'm kind of sad about the turtleneck. Once I'm done, and if I've blocked it and I feel like it really doesn't irritate me, maybe I'll figure out if I can pick up any stitches at the end of the stockinette to make a turtleneck. Or maybe I'll just wear a turtleneck underneath. This Jacob's yarn has so much memory in it. Like, obviously stockinette curls up, right? But this is the most curled up stockinette I've ever knit. This is making no sense whatsoever. I was knitting the body, and I swear to God, I've been knitting on it for days, and it was still here. I was like, what's going on? And then I unrolled it, and it was here. I was like, I've been knitting forever. I'm making no progress. I'm still at the color work line, but no, it just rolls up a lot, like 2-3 times over itself. Even the bind off and stuff is really curly. I'm hoping it'll all block out. I think it will. It's a gorgeous yarn. I have a little bit more of the first sleeve to do before I start on the color work. So I've decided to go with the color work and the, like, I think this one has an I-cord edging, which will match the rolled neck. Super excited to move on with this and finish it. And my other whip is the Strat Skillet by Natalia Sinelshikova. She's also fiber creative. And I'm knitting this for my husband. I have just done a little bit more progress on the body, but it's just the same stitch pattern as I talked about in my last podcast. It's just knit a little bit more. I'm knitting this in Drops Nepal, which is a 65% wool. I feel like I'm in school, like I'm memorizing all of these so I don't keep looking at my notes like I was doing last episode. 65% wool, 35% alpaca. In the colorway medium gray. So I'm supposed to do 25 repeats of the center pattern, and I think I've just hit the 15th repeat, so it's going to be a little bit more time. I just haven't had the brain power to work on anything other than just stockinette for the past week and a half. So this one's been on the back burner, but I did feel guilty and I did on it a little bit last night. So that's my last work in progress. Moving on to the acquisitions. The first thing I got was a more like a small jewelry digital scale. Since I was now starting to do a test knit, I've just been using my really crappy kitchen scale, which is fine if you're weighing, 200 grams of wool. But now that I was weighing really light mohair, I needed a more accurate scale. So I've got a little scale because I want to be a responsible test knitter. The other thing that I've recently purchased is a second-hand overlocker. I have done a little bit of sewing, but I had convinced myself that the reason I couldn't sew that I have mohair on my lip. Excuse me. Right. So the other thing I've purchased is an overlocker. I had convinced myself that the reason I wasn't sewing as much was because I hate doing zigzag, and I don't have the skills to do French seaming, and I felt like I didn't have a way to finish my edging. Finally, I managed to find myself a second-hand overlocker. So now I have no excuses to not sew. I'm currently working on a toile of a dress with a free pattern just to get used to using it. I've already messed it up, had to recut it. So unless I finish the toile and it looks all right, because at the moment it looks like a nurse's uniform from a 1850s Victorian mental hospital. It's not cute. If it looks all right, I'll show you. Otherwise, once I actually start doing some decent sewing projects, I'll show it on my podcast. Then the sweater quantity of yarn that I decided to buy while I was ordering the mohair for this top is for a project that I 100% got knit-fluenced by someone. And that someone is Elena from the Simple Knit Co podcast. She's an Aussie podcaster from Brisbane. Once I started podcasting, I basically got adopted by a bunch of Australian podcasters, which has been lovely. But I discovered quite a few new people that I never heard of, and Elena is one of them. So I've been watching her back catalog. I absolutely love watching what she makes. And she's funny, and she makes quite unique projects that you don't see just everywhere. In one of our older episodes, she had made the Deliciosa sweater by Nora Gone, which had come out a couple of years ago for a Brooklyn Tweed collection. I remember seeing it then, but the main photos of it were like the cropped version, and I loved the sweater, but I was like, oh, that's a bit too cropped, I would never wear it. I didn't realize that it came in a cropped and a normal length until I saw Eleanor talking about it. And then I went and looked up the Ravelry project page, and there's updated photos of a bigger, a more positive ease and a longer version of it, but in a pink yarn, and it looks amazing. So obviously I have to knit it. And because I'm unimaginative, I got green yarn. So this was the yarn that I really wanted to try from Red Heart, and it's the Cascade 220. The Heathers. So this is the colorway Ireland, but with an extra E in the back, like Irelandy. And my partner actually chose this color of green out of the options, and I really like it because it has a little bit of undertone of yellow, which I think is really, really cute and accurate to knit leaves out of. I'm super excited. The yarn feels really nice. I have a feeling this sweater is going to jump ahead in my queue. And the other acquisition is also some green yarn. I think I'm going through a green phase. I find I go through phases of colors. Pink is always a constant. I would like to knit more things in black because I mostly wear black, but you know, black knitting, not always. I'm half blind anyways. But I was on Ravelry, and on the D-Stash page, someone was giving away a whole sweater, not giving away, selling, no one's giving me this yarn. Someone was selling a whole sweater quantity of the Music yarn from Green Mountain Spinnery in the colorway Atlantis. Green Mountain Spinnery was like on my bucket list of yarns to try. They're an American cooperative mill, and they make a lot of rustic, sometimes I think this is woolen spun, I could be wrong, I think they do both, yarn with locally sourced breeds. It just says 100% fine American wool, and I know like it's a blend of different stuff, and I really wanted to try it. And someone was selling a sweater quantity for like not even less than market price if I bought it in the US, even without the shipping. So obviously I bought it. I think I want to make another Nora Gone pattern out of this, but I'm still sort of looking up a few options. I don't know what yet. It's so pretty. It feels so nice. I'm super excited. And then me and my friend went to the New South Wales Quilt and Craft Fair. More about it later. But my partner, as I said, has been asking for a pair of mittens, and I asked him what color, and I always try to get him to let me knit him a burgundy sweater because I love burgundy on men. I don't know what men I'm talking about, on my one man, I guess. And he's not a big fan of wearing burgundy, especially in a sweater. So he was like, what about burgundy gloves? I was like, deal. So the craft fair was more of a quilting fair, but they had a couple of yarn places, and they had Nundle woolen mills, which I had been wanting to try. So I went over and I got this yarn. This is the 4-ply Chaffee. It's 100% merino wool, and it's machine washable because he wanted super wash yarn, so you can chuck the mittens into the wash. And yes, my husband knows the difference, and he specifically was like, maybe super wash, because he knows I would just buy rustic yarn otherwise. So I showed it to him, and he was like, oh, and I was like, uh-oh, he doesn't like the color. But he wouldn't admit it for a couple of days, and then I was like, just tell me. And he was like, no, you bought it for me. And I was like, it's yarn. my camera cut me off. Turns out it does that 30-minute thing where after 30 minutes it cuts you off. Anyways, as I was saying, I was telling my husband, if you don't like the color, just tell me it's yarn. I'll use it somewhere. And then he said, yeah, it's too red. And then only after I got home, I realized that the color was called berry. So I totally get what he means, because I think he was imagining more of a darker burgundy. It looked more burgundy because it was right next to a bright red. But it's fine. I'll use it for something else. Maybe a baby knit or a gift knit, because it's a really cute color. So yarn originally bought for husband, but now it's for me. And the other purchase I made at the craft fair is this cute little, I love him so much. It's a wool felt craft kit, and it's to make this little hanging ornament, this little llama with the eyelashes. I love him. I have managed to convince my partner to help me out with this, so I think we're gonna do it together and then we can hang it on our Christmas tree. It's really cute. I love him. I think that's it. Yeah, that's all my acquisitions. I love how I said that like there was only one thing. Like there's enough acquisitions, Ira. And then the knitting events. I visited the Grumpy Ginger yarn store in Wyong. That was the store I was at when I was looking at the mohair, and I was like, I don't need to buy mohair. Yes, you do. And what I found really interesting about that store is that they have a really good collection of Australian hand-dyed yarns. So if you're someone that likes to see yarns in person, because I know colors are, different on every screen. I even discovered a few new dyers that I had never heard of, because unlike a commercial yarn store where all of the brands are, all in one place, a lot of indie dyers sell individually. It can be hard to know who exists. The other place you can find a good directory of indie dyers is the Colorways Collective that I discussed last time. She's just started making a directory of indie dyers in Australia, what kind of yarns they have, what plies, superwash, non-superwash, etc. So I'll link their website down below. I didn't end up buying much. I just bought like a hand balm and like a couple of bits for my needle kit, but I have a little bit of footage coming up. And I went to the New South Wales Quilt and Craft Fair last weekend, like I mentioned. There was some amazing quilts. Oh my gosh. And it was really fun. I walked around. There was, paper crafts, vinyl, a bit of yarn. There was wagtail yarns, which is like an Australian mohair farm, I think. Really interesting yarns. I would love to try some from there someday, but I didn't have any pattern in mind, and it wasn't like a silk kid mohair. It was more like, 8-ply mohair yarn. So I didn't know how much to buy or what to buy. So at least now I know they exist, so I can look up online in the future. I think that's all I have to say today. Hopefully the lighting is not too bad. I tried using artificial lighting, but I don't have studio lighting in my home. Sorry about that. If you want to keep up with more of my works, I'm available on Ravelry and Instagram as KukieKnits. If you have any pattern suggestions for the Green Mountain Spinnery, it's a DK weight yarn. I have about 1600 meters. Please leave me comments as well as any feedback. So anything you want to talk about in the comments. The other update I have, because I want to be really transparent about my sizing, because of course on screen it's hard to see or hard to gauge what people's sizes are. Especially I've realized like in my pictures, I look completely different to what I look like in video or in person. I think I said in the first episode that I was a 91 centimeter bust. However, I recently measured myself because I'm going to help one of my friends with a test knit and she needed accurate measurements. And I'm a 95 centimeter bust now. It's probably a combination of COVID and the fact that I've decided to wear normal bras again for the first time in years. So that's anyways, so for this one, I went for the 95 centimeter measurement rather than the 91, which is why I think I have a little bit more positive ease on my bust. Normally my bust is always really tight, and for some reason I didn't realize that it's because I was sizing down. So 95 centimeters bust. That's a weird topic to end the podcast on, but that's all I have to say for today. Thank you so much for joining me. Coming up is a little bit of footage from Grumpy Ginger Yarns and the craft fair, as well as one of my friends and what she bought at the craft fair. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye. we're just at the craft fair and I thought we could have a look and see what stuff Ane bought.
Yeah. Oh, just me.
Just you. This is my friend Ane.
Hi. I got these posters. Is it focusing? Hello.
Wow, we're real professional vloggers.
Here we go.
Yeah.
So they're for like drips and stuff in the cup holders of the car. Then we got these. Oh, that's not any minute now.
2,000 years later.
We'll forget about that one.
I'm gonna have to edit it out. I'll put a picture. What is it? You need to say what it is.
Oh yeah, I forgot. It's the wool mix felt craft kit. It's a little, I don't know, ornament. Felt ornament.
Yeah.
It's apparently easy. And then this felt embroidery. Oh, it's called the wool mix felt applique hoop kit cactus.
That's a lot of big words.
I know. So I got that one as well. This is intermediate level, so fingers crossed I can do it.
I think we're gonna have to get Ane back on the podcast so we can see her progress. Next week?
Next week.
Next week. She'll be back with a fully completed wool applique kit. This one and the other embroidery kit.
Bloody hell.
Bye. Say bye.